Good day, viewers. Welcome and thank you for joining us. You're watching Open Studio right here on Cape Town TV. I'm Danny Cambo, and our favorite lady is back. Our moderator is here in studio with us from the amazing organization called the Trauma Unit. All right. Last time she was with us, we spoke about the difference between trauma. We spoke about violence. We spoke about torture, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Now, so we're gonna go a bit deeper into that conversation where we address social matters such as the LG. Just help me with this one.
LGBTQI plus.
QI plus. All right, we've got that. We've got the gender-based violence. We've got xenophobic attacks. So we're gonna unwrap all of that in today's conversation. So, Margaret, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Danny.
Oh, you're
Nice
welcome.
to be here again.
You're welcome. Good to have you here again. For those that's watching it, at home, that's seeing you for the first time or missed the previous show, can you just give us a little bit of, introduction about yourself?
Okay, my name is Marguerite Holthausen. I'm the executive director and also senior social worker at the Trauma Center.
Yeah.
Our organization's full name is the Trauma Center for Survivors of Violence and Torture. And I love the name because it really just says what we do.
Yeah.
In one sentence.
And wraps it up.
It wraps it up so you know what we are dealing with.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Wow.
we really give that support to communities. One thing, there are social workers in every community, but social workers are often so caught up in doing statutory work. That means child protection work. There's no time to really sit and listen to people, to counsel, to help people through whatever happened to them.
Yeah.
And we are that organization that helps with that healing. And, and if healing don't take place, it leads to more pain. Because that person who's been hurt would often, in some way, hurt the next person. Even if recently we listened to somebody talking about the challenges of parents who have been through trauma and how that impacts their parenting. So that child of the parent who went through trauma maybe doesn't get the love and support and attention that the child needs, because the parent is still dealing with that trauma and caught up in the pain of that, and their energy is being drained by this. This is a horrific thing that happened to them, and that causes them not to be able to give the child what they want. So we want to break the cycle of violence. We want to see that people get that healing, get that support. And that is where we are here, why we are here, and what we do.
Yeah, I mean, the last time I had a conversation with you, you mentioned that, it's very important to deal with the root of the problem, rather than putting plaster on what has already occurred. And you also mentioned that prevention is better. So just tell us that, how important is it that we tackle things from the root, and also how important is prevention, before things escalate to a point where somebody is lost and has closed themselves from any help?
So it's very important, that's why it's so important that people know of the service that we give, because what happens is, if you've been through a traumatic event and you don't get support, then how do people deal with that? Often, if there's nobody to listen to them, if they talk to people and they don't get support, they resolve to destructive ways of dealing with trauma, like substance abuse, alcohol abuse. And that's one way. Another way is just to withdraw themselves and to cut them off from feeling, because feeling has been so painful, so hurtful. To cut yourself off from feeling your pain, and also the pain of others. And that can lead to people also being abusive towards other people. And we work with that first line of support for anybody. And also, we do preventative programs. We have support groups where we can also inform people on what to do to avoid trauma, but also how to deal with it and resolve it before it becomes something that's disabling to the person and debilitating.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, and many of the people within our society that we find that's really battling with this thing is people that tend to go to gangsterism, because that's where they find sense of love, sense of being, and they just don't care about life anymore. They don't care about the next person's life, So How do we tackle that within our societies?
You know, by giving people at least options. You know, that's often what happens is if a young person grows up and there's no option of somebody giving them support, somebody helping them through their pain, then they just suppress that pain and just go where they find, as you say, a sense of belonging. And that becomes their support system. They need support. So they find it in a structure that is in a way supporting them, making them feel worthy to some extent. It's very easy to judge, say, oh, why do people go into gangsterism? But sometimes if you look at the circumstances where people grow up, then you can understand why people make choices that might not from at face value look sensible, but in terms of their life, what happened in their lives, that was basically the only option for them to go. So it's to bring alternatives. So our work that we do in schools, we work with children, we give children tools and you know, tools for themselves and to strengthen themselves from the inside, you know, that they are able to deal with what's happening with them, that they can report issues as soon as possible. And in that way, they can actually, they can heal their pain at a young age when they're still able to adapt and flexible, and before it becomes something that it's very hard to manage.
And I mean, it always starts from a young age where, you know, everything you go through your childhood tends to come out when you are older, and that's where you find that there's gender-based violence, you know, aggressive men towards the woman, aggressive men towards the children, and that could be because there's no father figure, but because they themselves have faced that kind of violence in the childhood. Would you agree with that statement?
Definitely. You know, the one of the causes of drivers of violence with perpetrators is childhood trauma. So definitely that needs to be addressed. We need to work with families. We have parenting programs where we work with parents to deal with their trauma and also to deal better with trauma that their children are subjected to. You know, the communities where a lot of our clients come from, there's trauma on a daily basis. There's gunshots. Actually, people get used to it. Trauma becomes normalized. It's a normal thing to go through all of that. And so definitely, there's a lot of skills that we need to transfer to communities, and not only to the parents, but we work also with trauma support workers who work at police stations, who are volunteers, who are also support. So yeah, we're expanding on that.
Thank you so much for that, Margaret. We're going to take a short break. All right, when we come, we'll continue more with our conversation. So for those that's watching at home, don't go anywhere. We'll be back after this. Hey guys, welcome back. You are still watching Open Studio right here on Cape Town TV. I've got Ronald with me now in studio, who is a social worker, also from the Trauma Unit Center, and he's here to speak to us a little bit about the solutions to the problems which we find right now within our communities. And like we mentioned earlier on with Margaret, and I mean, you guys can also, you know, mention it offhand, things like domestic violence, gender-based violence. You know, we're gonna speak more about that with Ronald right here now in studio. Ronald, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So for those that's watching now, you know, seeing you for the first time, can you just give us a little bit brief about yourself and how you got into the organization?
My name is Ronald Menoe. I'm a social worker.
Yeah, don't forget to mic it on.
I'm a social worker at the Trauma Center. And my role as a Trauma Center started working in the Child Protection Clinic, where we go into communities and support children who are exposed to trauma or suffered trauma. And we would take them through a counseling process, which is highly needed because most services available in communities are either statutory social work or organizations that are doing preventative work only. So there's a high need of social workers who can do counseling sessions in communities, and communities are really appreciative of that. But currently, I'm a workplace social worker where we've got private companies contracted to the Trauma Center And what we do is we give confidential counselings to employees within this workplace, just to make sure that employees are happy and there's productivity within the workplace.
Wow, Ronald, you mentioned that we need more social workers within our societies to help fight what is happening right now. And every year, every month, we see that there is a growth of violence. We see there is a growth of gangsterism, gang violence, drugs, and so forth. Do you think us as members of societies, you as social workers, are you doing enough to help, or do we need reinforcement?
Look, a lot needs to be done, but there are a lot of external factors that causes things that are happening in our communities, and that is bringing us where we are. And I think the fact that we don't have enough police stations, for example, it's one of the issues. But where you have police stations, you've got lack of skills from those who are sitting in the front office, just to make sure that people who need assistance get it. And I'm using a police station as an example. This could apply to a clinic or any other service in the community. But I think most importantly is the political will in the country, because ultimately, with whatever that we do, we've got a hardworking government that need to invest more resources into services such as this one. Not only a selected service to make sure that we respond, but do not prevent. So prevention work is very important, and that is where I always say we need to focus our energy into. And I think in a collaborative way, in the police or law enforcement officials, social workers, schools, we still need to see ourselves work together, because at this point we're fragmented.
Wow, and that's a very important fact that you mention now, because even I felt that that the government has been investing more into solution. For example, where we've got this gang violence happening within our communities, we've got they're investing for what happens once they've already locked, once they've already closed, and do not want to accept help anymore, where we've got less resources to help and actually change the perspective at a young age already, so that it can help them. So just going in that direction, what do you think the government can do differently to try and help those that are right now getting in that process of closing up?
Look, I think the most important thing here we need to focus on is to build capacity of the people in the country. And we can build capacity by educating the public on what is gender-based violence, what is trauma. And once people know that, because remember, trauma come in different forms. There is trauma that is linked to violence, where we talk about gangs, we talk about robberies and housebreak, and then people just experiencing it on a day-to-day basis. But there's also trauma just for losing your mother. That loss is also trauma. So they are easy for us as social workers. There's always low-hanging fruit, because everyone problem means that I've got a work to do. So our preventative work must be directed in that way, wherein if we could deal with crime in our communities, can the law enforcement of a division be strengthened to deal with that, so that organizations like Trauma Center, when we deal with trauma cases, we don't deal with trauma that could have been prevented. So I think resources need to be invested in such services from where I'm standing.
Wow. And I wanted to ask you as well, within our schools we've got social workers, in the majority of our schools, which is there to aid the kids. So I'm not sure if there are any social workers within the police stations, but besides organizations like yourselves, are there police stations, are there social workers in police stations, or do you think that would be a great investment to have social workers within police stations?
There are similar services, not necessarily social workers in all police stations, especially for victims of rape, gender-based violence. Police stations have got what we call victim empowerment services. So each police station, if you walk into a police station and you have been raped, you are quickly taken away from the front office to a victim empowerment section, where is a child-friendly and victim-friendly setting. And there's always people working in that center, not necessarily the trauma center. So there are people working who make sure they contain the person who's coming to a police station after experiencing a traumatic experience. And in terms of social work services themselves, they are not in every police station. And then as a trauma center, we happen to be in the police stations that we are because we've identified the need.
Yeah.
We could have been anywhere. We could have used churches, we could have used schools.
Yeah.
But we saw that because we're dealing with victims of violence here, it's important that we are positioned in a police station so that when people come to the police station, we can quickly see them while they're making a statement, before or after they make a statement.
Wow, that's an insightful point that you made, because I never knew this, and I can only think how many other people is out there that does not know this information and are holding, there could be victims of rape, but they are holding on to that because they don't know if somebody at police station will understand what they're going through rather than just writing down a case, So thank you so much for that for that information. And for those of us watching at home, I hope this few minutes has been insightful for you. And if you know anybody that is a victim, or if you yourself is a victim, please go out there and seek help. There is help for you. So we're going to take a short break. When we come back from the break, then we'll continue with our conversation one more time with the trauma unit. So do not go anywhere. We'll be back after this. All right, guys, welcome back. You're watching Open Studio right here on Cape Town TV. I've got Margaret with me in studio from the Trauma Center. All right, she's here to speak to us a little bit more about, social issues that we are currently facing within our communities, within society, and also within our country. Okay, we mentioned a lot about gender-based violence. We mentioned a lot about gangsterism. We even touched on LGBT as well as xenophobia. So just to continue on that, a service like the one that you are offering requires lots of help, lots of external help, lots of financial help. How is your organization coping? Because we are still in a pandemic. Now, how is your organization coping in terms of finance to help and fund these projects?
So we are lucky that we are funded by the Department of Social Development, the Victim Empowerment Program and Children and Families Program for basics. But that's a little bit. We also recently got support from the Japanese embassy with a vehicle, which also could be used as a counseling center, a little counseling spot. It's been refurbished that way. We're very grateful for that. Yeah. All of these things have to be kept going. The Open Society Foundation supported us with parenting programs. Julia tapped with especially working with refugee children. Yeah. We have a wonderful partnership with INJ. They recently gave us over 400 food parcels that we could distribute in communities, because the reality is, you can counsel people as much as you want if there's not food on the table. And unfortunately, this is the reality that we face because of this pandemic. Yeah. Then people can't move forward. We need to support people sometimes in very practical ways. And we even have an organization, a company that recently said to us, if you can counsel our staff, we'll fix your plumbing. Schmidhauser in Woodstock. So sometimes, very practical ways. We have a volunteer who has a youth group at our center, and in return, he fixes our gate for us, or do little, or get the youth to come and mow our lawn. So it's a partnership. We can't do it alone. And every little bit helps. Every little donation helps. So if anybody's interested to help us, you can contact us at info@trauma.org.za. Yeah. info@trauma.org.za. Give us an email. You can phone us. You can look us up. The Trauma Center. We are there everywhere. We are on Twitter. Yeah. We are at #Trauma Center, and on Instagram we're Trauma Center 1. Facebook, the Trauma Center for Survivors of Violence and Torture, the long name. You can just say the Trauma Center for Survivors, and the rest will show up. So you can just contact us and say how you can help us. That is really, because we need you. We do it for you. If you help us, we can help more people.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. And listening to speak today, there's a lot that you're doing for communities, a lot that you're doing for people. So once you have counseled these people, once you have spoken to someone and helped them, do you follow up on them?
Definitely. Until the person feels they've been helped and they don't need any more services. So you definitely do. I mean, even after we've terminated a relationship with a client because I felt they could move on, we phoned them and asked them, were you happy with our services? And we actually recently, people we phoned, I was actually surprised how positive people were and how the service actually supported them. I want to say also something to everybody who's going to go through this festive season. You know, don't be afraid to ask for help. To ask for help is a good thing. It's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. And be kind to yourself. We sometimes are our own worst enemies. And just be gentle and make time to reflect every day and to get in touch with how you feel. Eat healthy and you know, take it easy on the partying. Have a party, but you know, save a bit of money on the alcohol. And just be more crazy, sober crazy. Go for that.
Be responsible.
Yes, be responsible. Have fun, but be responsible.
You know, that's alcohol is one of the major causes of, you know, all these issues that we have also of, especially gender-based violence. You know, have you had any of those instances within your organization where, you know, that somebody comes to you, they are facing violence or abuse, and you find that the root cause of it is alcohol?
It's often, very often, a lot of these problems are driven by alcohol abuse and substance abuse. And sometimes, you know, the substance abuse is because you want to hide your trauma. So just come and talk and ask help. There's a lot of people who want to help. Not only us, but in the communities. There's trauma support workers at police stations. There's feeding schemes, all these wonderful mothers who have been the strength and the support of our communities through this pandemic, who have given with open hearts and open hands. There's always people who want to help, but you have to just take the first step and ask.
Wow. Just take the first step and ask. So, you know, before we say our goodbyes, if somebody comes within your organization and comes to seek that help, what can we expect, or what can they expect? What kind of services will they expect from you guys?
You know, we deliver a client-centered service. So we're very much guided by what the need is of the person who comes. But we can guarantee that we first listen to hear what you come with and what you need from us. And then together we will figure out how to go forward.
Is there a fee to this?
Our services are free. In the communities that we especially get funded from DSD, that is Delft, Kraaifontein, Langa, Bonteheuwel, Manenberg. That is absolutely free. At our center at Woodstock, we help as many people we can. We obviously only a certain amount of people, but we will find a way to support you, even if we have to refer you to somebody else who does similar services. And with our services to companies, we do ask some support from companies, and that again is like a multiplier effect, because we help your staff members, and in turn that money also helps people in the communities where your staff come from. So it's amazing support that you can give your communities by using our service.
Wow. So they help you, you help them. Yes. Thank you so much for that, Margaret. We have unfortunately come to the end of the show, but this has been one of the most informative shows that I have been on in a long time. And I thank you for that. Thank you for the work that you guys are doing within our communities and trying to help young people in particular, you know, to grow up to become good men and women for society. And for those that's watching at home, thank you so much for tuning in. If you've got any issues, as we mentioned today on the show, go out and seek them. The Trauma Unit, they are everywhere. Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, everywhere you will find them, and go get it help. You will need it. You know, so thank you so much from the Cape Town TV crew and from my side. Until next time, bye-bye.